Hello, hello, hello. Happy peak of the week. We're together. And you have a guest. So this is Caroline, our friend Caroline, but thank you for joining us on Wednesday. Here to keep it real with you, Cheryl. You can do your little...
You can't see it.
You can't see. She's fingers the wrong way, keeping it real. That looks so ridiculous doing that. And we're with Caroline, who's also keeping it real with us today.
Yeah, I don't know how real that is, but anyway.
Like, how middle-aged do we look right now, people?
Well, if our kids could see this now, they'd be going, oh my God.
I know. Well, I walked Caleb into school this morning. It was his first day back. He's 7. And the headmaster was out and some of the teachers had music blasting in the yard, obviously trying to make it feel like a party. So I started dancing. He was like, please don't. Can you imagine? Yeah. I'm just like, what is he going to be like in a few years' time?
Yeah, you wait.
100%. Hi, Yvette. So if you're with us, please drop us a line, say hello. We've got Caroline with us today, who... It's not working. I'll let you do that. Who we've been telling you all week. So Caroline's one of our friends, and we're in Nick's elite group together, which is amazing. We get to work together and serve people together. And we loved you as soon as we met you, because I think because of my background of coming from an abusive background and having a really abusive marriage, as soon as I remembered when you said like about the narcissistic thing, and we're like, oh, it's an actual thing. Like, there's people who do that specifically, which I wish I had met you all those years ago, Caroline. So would you just tell the guys, because I don't think even people will necessarily know what narcissistic abusive relationships are.
Yeah, no, they won't, because it's really an overused term in our society. You know, everyone's ex seems to be a narcissist at the moment. You know, if you enter a relationship and it isn't very nice, then often people say, oh yeah, my ex is a narcissist and everything else. And that really isn't the case. You know, there's a real difference between somebody having narcissistic traits, which actually we all have, every single person has, and then somebody who has what we call narcissistic personality disorder. So narcissistic personality disorder is a mental health disorder. It's listed in what we call the DSM, which is the Diagnostical and Statistical Manual. And it's what the American Psychological Association, really like the book of what they will use to diagnose things. So to be classified as someone with narcissistic personality disorder, there are 9 traits that are listed, and you have to have 5 or more. So really it's on a spectrum. You know, you can have someone who has 5 and you can have someone that's 9. The problem is that it's very hard to get a clinical diagnosis of someone, because no person or no narcissist ever is going to go, I think I'm a narcissist.
I was laughing when I saw you post on Insta, that, which, by the way, congrats on hitting your 11,000 on Insta. That's amazing. On the one that you don't really do that much. Like, you're more of a Facebook girl. But you said it's like, if you're asking if you're a narcissist, the answer is no, you're not, right? Like, there's no everybody's
because so the 9, there are a lot to go through. If you Google NPD DSM, it will come up with all of the 9. What I say to notice to people, because they're all, you know, when you look at the 9, they can be misconstrued in certain ways as well. The way I always say to somebody about whether or not they're a narcissist or not, because, you know, I always get tons of messages, you know, is my ex a narcissist? Is my mum a narcissist? My dad, my friend, my co-worker? And one of the key things that I say about a narcissist is a narcissist has no empathy whatsoever. Now, they can fake the empathy to get some supply, but they don't actually have it. And one analogy that I always say is a really good place to think is, if it was, say, your partner, ex-partner, if you were sat in the middle of your lounge and you told them you'd got a really serious illness, you know, and think about how they would react to you when you're on your own with them, and how would they react to you if they had an audience. And that normally really can start to tell you. I had a very similar incident with my ex-husband, and I remember sitting there, I literally had tears running down my face, and it was almost like he was looking at me like paint was drying. There was no emotion. Factor in family afterwards, completely different scenario. You know, it's like the great husband and, oh, isn't he amazing, everything, because everything is about getting supply. And actually those people who do end up in these narcissistic relationships, there are always patterns towards that. It's not a coincidence. You know, even for me, if my two sisters had ended up in a relationship, say with my ex-husband, they wouldn't have stayed as long as I did, even though we had the same parents. So a lot of it always goes back to our childhood with who we are, and actually the starting point even of a narcissist. So we know from research at the moment, narcissists aren't born narcissists, okay? There's at the moment, there's no genetic link to narcissistic personality disorder. We know it happens in childhood, and there's a number of reasons why. So, you know, normally if a child is maybe the golden child, maybe they are pitted against other siblings, maybe there's neglect or abuse. Now, it doesn't mean, obviously, that a child in that environment means they are then go on to be a narcissist. You know, I've had situations where you can have the same parents and one child will be a narcissist and the other will be a codependent, for instance. And that codependency is that lack of self, not feeling worthy, the lack of self-confidence, self-belief, self-esteem, all of those. The sense of self is really lost. But the starting point of a narcissist is actually exactly the same. So again, in the work that I do a lot of parts therapy in what I do, and I use something called internal family systems. So it's a very evidence-based parts therapy, and it's all about that you have a true self. So we all have the true self of who we are, someone who can live life with confidence, clarity, calm, connected, courageous. Wouldn't we all like to live a life like that? What happens in our childhood is we get these wounds, and these wounds, and in internal family systems, we call them exiles, because they're wounds we don't want to feel again. So they could be wounds like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable. And what happens then is that we then get these protector parts that show up for us. So it's really interesting when we're talking about, for this, with the self-confidence aspect, for instance, you know, that lack of self-confidence can come from many different protector parts, such as procrastination, self-sabotage. All of these different parts will show up. But it's always about protecting a core wound, for instance. So a narcissist is exactly the same, but the problem with a narcissist, and the fact it's a mental health disorder, a personality disorder, it's a cluster B one, is that their protector parts become their false sense of self. So you never get beyond the wound or the true self. They become so strong that they project all of that pain and hurt outwardly and externally onto somebody else. So I love to say, send me all the narcissists, you know, I will cure them, I will treat them. But sadly, they don't recognize that they have an issue, and there is the problem. So I can't help somebody who doesn't acknowledge that there's a problem in the first place. And that makes it really hard for the victims then of narcissistic abuse.
Absolutely. And I think as a woman who lived with one for 7 going on 8 years, you do start off really thinking that you can help, and then somewhere you think you fix them. and then along that journey, it's just that I remember like recognizing, just thinking like, I have no idea who you actually are, but neither do you.
Absolutely.
And you would be saying things, and I remember like I would say to him, do you actually believe, like it was such a blatant, like the lies would be so blatant and stuff. I'd be like, do you actually believe this? And then like you say, if there was an audience involved, I mean, Oscar winning performance wasn't in it. Like he'd come and smash my face open. I'd drive myself to hospital, literally, like that one there, literally holding my face together. I'd get to hospital and then he would turn, oh my God, are you okay? And I'm like, you just cut my face open and stood smirking, let me get myself in the car, and then you're like, oh my God, oh my God. But then it was eerie, because you know, you're like, what the hell? Yeah.
And I think that's part of the problem then as well, because all of a sudden when they switch, you start to think, well, was it me?
I don't think it was your mind.
A problem. And actually the brain physiologically changes when you're in an abusive relationship. So we have a part of our brain called the limbic system, which is our emotional part of the brain. And we have 2 structures in there called the amygdala and the hippocampus. So the hippocampus is our memory center, and the amygdala is like our fear sense, like our radar, you know, looking for all of those elements of danger for you. And what happens during an abusive relationship, whether whether you're an adult in a domestically abusive relationship, narcissistic, or even a child in an abusive childhood, the hippocampus starts to shrink in size. So we get a lot of brain fog, a lot of forgetfulness, and the amygdala actually increases in size. So that's when we feel really on edge all of the time, and where really the phrase walking on eggshells comes in, because you literally feel like you're on edge. But it's actually the brain again trying to protect you, because everything's about protection. You know, the brain's number one job is to keep us alive, to keep us safe, to move us away from pain. So it's trying to keep us really vigilant of all of this, so we can send messages to our nervous system to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So fawn is a fourth trauma response that we talk about in abusive relationships. So fawn is very much just almost similar to what you were saying there, is, you know, that they may do something and then you're left thinking, okay, I'm gonna be really, really nice. I'm gonna try and fix it and make it right and everything else. You know, so you almost appease the abuser in the hope maybe the abuse will lessen and diminish to living your life and everything as well.
But it doesn't, does it? It just gets bigger and worse and bigger.
Yeah, and you lose yourself even more.
100%. And Thomas is just, I know it's Thomas because he was talking about this friend that he had the other day who he would just give, and then like has literally drawn a line now and is having to take them to court to get money back. He's just saying, I'm literally walking home post running, oh my effing God, the penny has dropped. That's so my ex-friend. Because again, it's not necessarily an intimate partner, is it? These
I realise I'd attract toxic friends. Absolutely. It can be anybody as well. The lies catch up with the person. Yeah, it does. I'm a big believer and it always does catch up. But one of the key things to remember when you're dealing with a narcissist, whether that be an ex-partner, a family member, a co-worker, a friend, that you keeping on trying to validate and justify and get them to see or to have an epiphany that they're going to change. You know, it's like you drinking rat poison, expecting the rat to die. Not going to happen. You have to turn away. You've just got to focus on yourself and that energy to you and fact and what you can do. There's no point trying to hope that they may change. They won't change. They will not change. So stop thinking that they will at any stage.
I love that clarity though. Like literally, this is why we wanted to do this, because if I had that advice, because the amount of times when you just said that, they're like, I can get them to change. Like you genuinely are so deluded that you think that if I love them enough, if I'm just show them enough, if I get home on time, then they won't question. If I can just, and they're so hungry, aren't they? But like you said, just matter how much you give them, it's never enough.
But then there's the pattern, there's the magnet of that. So the person who wants to give and fix, there's a starting point for them, and normally there's a wound of I'm not good enough, I'm not wonderful, I'm not worthy. So when they are behaving in that certain way, that's activating your wound, which the brain goes, oh, pain, danger, oh, and these protector parts show up then. So I'll be a people pleaser, I'll be a perfectionist, I'll be a procrastinator, a self-sabotager. For me, I used to self-harm. You know, there's so many other things. I binge ate, you know, and other people, there'll be addictions can come into play. Dissociation will just numb out all of our feelings. So everything is about protection. There are always patterns as to why someone does end up in that narcissistic relationship. But the power in all of that means it's not about the narcissist. The power is, well, if it was me before I met the narcissist that made me the magnet, what was it that made me the magnet? That's the bit that I can work on, so I don't then attract that type of relationship into my life. Or I learn to create boundaries and I'm not pleasing everybody else and just blurring those boundary lines all of the time.
I think that's really powerful. Even some of the people in our challenge group are worried about dating and things, and they keep saying, I keep attracting this certain kind of man. And it's like, we always say, and I had to do this work, I had to say, what was it about me that started that relationship, stayed in that relationship? And it's not nice. It was, and I remember friends saying, well, it was him, he was this, he was that. And I'm like, but I stayed, I allowed it. And actually that felt empowering for me, because I knew that I could therefore change it and do something. And it's horrible, it's a sickening position to be in when you're in it, but like you can any day make a different choice, right, and start to do the inner work. Because in there, it's hard to turn away.
It is really hard to turn away, because if someone is behaving in a certain way where they're making you feel not good enough and activating your wound, your brain wants to fix that. So to prove you are good enough. So you will go back and keep trying. And actually, there is an addiction that comes with that as well. So we get addicted to feeling struggle. You know, I had a session with a client the other day, and we were talking about the addiction to struggle. As her life started to get back to normal and we were moving into some real nice calm seas, it felt really alien to her. So she wanted to bring drama and struggle back. That's what she was used to. So
that's 90% of your behaviour is habitual. Your subconscious knows that, and whilst it might not be good for you, it's what it knows. So it's trying to bring more of that into your life, right? So
absolutely.
I always say it's hard, but it's harder to stay. It's harder to think what your life's going to be like 10 years in that relationship.
And I think the question to always ask, and this goes for anything really, if you feel an activation in your body, there's a reason for that. So again, a lot of the work I do is sort of the trauma aspect. So if we feel that activation in our nervous system, you know, rapid heart rate, or we feel like we're doing something, rather than thinking it's their fault, why are they doing that? It's just take a step back and think, okay, I can't change them, but what is it about their behavior, this event, that's making me feel like this? Where's that coming from? Because I'm actually not in any danger, so to speak. So why does my brain and body think there is danger? You know, I will often I have like a little ladder that I use, and I talk about this. You know, this is when we feel safe and we can deal with challenge, and we go about our everyday life. This is when we tip into the fight and flight, our sympathetic nervous system. So we might feel angry or anxious. And then this is when we kind of go into survival, where we go into the freeze. Don't want to see anyone, don't want to speak to anyone, don't really want to get out of bed. And these are all natural responses for us, but these bottom 2/3 really should only be happening for us if there's actual danger. We have this higher brain now as humans, and we start putting caveats on things and what people think and everything else. Our perception becomes very much about those beliefs again, that I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable. And if we felt as a child, I'm not good enough, in that moment, the brain thinks, whoa, I don't want you to feel that pain ever again. So it becomes this mission then for you never to feel that pain. So they try and manage you not feeling the pain by things like procrastination, self-sabotage, all of that. Or if you feel the pain, like the scabs off the wound, addiction, dissociation, I'm going to numb you, distract you and soothe you away from that pain as well. But it's always about protection of something you felt really when you were that child.
I love that. Ali's just asking, he's one of our good friends as well, is a narcissist in every environment, or is it inherently always there, or is it environmentally linked?
No. So once a narcissist is a narcissist, so to speak, and again, if there was to be a diagnosis, we tend not to diagnose till they're 18 or more. You tend to notice it more in the teenage years. And then if you were going to get a clinical diagnosis, if you could get one, normally it's around 18 that can actually happen. But once they're a narcissist, again, there is no research out there to say you can cure someone who has narcissistic personality disorder. There are cases out there where people have had medication. And there's actually a really interesting man on Instagram called Sam Vankins, I think he's called. He's a self-confessed narcissist. He's very interesting to follow with what he says, and he often will do talks. He's a very, very clever man, and he will do talks about being a narcissist. And he will say, you know, when he sees like a woman in the audience crying, when obviously triggered with that, he will often talk about, it's like I look at her and I feel nothing. You know, he's very, very honest and candid about that as well. So once a narcissist is a narcissist, they are, and their goal all the time is to gain supply. Because if you think they have a wound and these strong parts, this false sense of self, everything is about them. Everything is about giving them their drug, which is narcissistic supply. But there's lots of sort of different types, but the main two I always talk about, which kind of covers all of them, is an overt, which is really the typical one we would associate with that. You know, that person who's very confident, almost a bit of arrogance, you know, that grandiose type of person. So if you tell someone maybe my ex is a narcissist or something with someone like that, they can kind of go, oh yeah, you know, they do love themselves, or they do, you know, they can almost see it in some respects. The most dangerous kind is what we call the covert narcissist. Now, they will act like a victim. They will act in a certain way to get the supply, almost like the poor me, you know, they'll be really upset. So if you break up from a covert narcissist and they're acting like the victim, yet you know you're the victim, that can make it really challenging. And as you're then trying to tell people, no, they did this, they did that, you're looking even more crazy whilst they're still the victim. And it just makes you feel even worse. And that's why covert narcissists, I think, are the most dangerous type. And they will often, covert narcissists can often come in positions of authority as well. You know, I've got a big free group. And, you know, we've done polls about some of the jobs that sometimes these people have, and they're pilots, sometimes doctors, in these really powerful jobs, yet they can sometimes really act victim-like in all of that too, and that can make it really challenging.
So manipulative, isn't it? And as often as when the woman isn't the narcissist, if it's that way around and the man is, because I feel like we're often DNA wired to please and to care for and to look after. It's invariably you tend to look at yourself and think the problem's with you, rather than add to that wounds and trauma and all the rest of it. Like, it's not a good combination for a lot of people.
No, it's not.
Amanda's just saying, I needed to hear that the last few days have been a real struggle, fear, danger, and self-worthy. Thanks, ladies. The not enough is what I know. Exactly. But there is another way of thinking. There's another way of being. Now, Caroline, literally, I know, covert, that's him, yeah. Like, literally, everyone's having, like, epiphanies. You know?
It is, honestly, I think any post I put out where I do anything to do with covert narcissism, I think it always gets my most comments, my most likes, and because people don't really know what a covert narcissist is. They just think of a narcissist as being this person that is out there, and it doesn't necessarily mean that. It really doesn't.
I could rattle about 10 off for you right now.
I can think of you in my head right now as well.
Absolutely. But we're going to put on all of the links. This is going across all of our Facebook channels and YouTube, and we'll put some on Instagram as well, just for people to be able to connect with you. And I know that you've got something amazing coming up that people can get involved in as well, haven't you, Caroline, if they want to really work on this?
Absolutely. So I've got a free boot camp actually that starts on Monday about helping you become narcissist free. So it's a 4-day boot camp. You know, Monday to Wednesday we're doing sort of past, present and future, and then on Thursday night I'm doing a masterclass as well. So if anyone wants to come in and have a little look, you know, and also I'm very aware that even if you don't want to be involved, because if there's past trauma, you know, this isn't about, yes, you've got to do all the tasks and yes, you have to do that. If you just want to come in so you can see what other people are doing, so you know you're not on your own, and you know that you're believed, you're in a safe place, and that is fine as well. There's no pressure.
100%. I really, really wish that I had known you and known this work when that was me in it, because you do just think it's you going mad quietly on your own. Someone to say, I'm now recognizing the red flags in my daughter's relationship. With her experience, I know she needs to make her own decisions, and I can only help her to pick up the pieces. But even being informed in something like in Caroline's boot camp, or even just honestly like following stuff on Caroline's page, I read it and I go, oh, that's so I forgot about that. And it's good. I like to stay connected because you know that you're going to stay aware, right? So
absolutely, yeah. And you're right. If someone has a daughter like that, it's, you know, just be there. You can't make someone see something, but just every now and again, even saying things like, you know, I noticed maybe you've not been so happy recently. Is everything okay? Just so they know you're there, just that they know you're there in the background, because that's a really big thing to know that there's somebody there.
Yeah, it's like keeping the door open, isn't it, all the time?
Yeah.
I mean, we have literally scratched the surface. We could do this all day. I think we should maybe do a full-on podcast, and then we can do a podcast. Caroline, do some more with you, because I'd love to. I think everyone, if they understand more about your story as well, I think it's really powerful. So let's get that booked in soon too. Yeah,
that'd be lovely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I could talk about this all day.
And what we would ask is, guys, as well, if you are watching this, well, like now or on replay later, forward it on. Just because you don't know who are in these relationships, just forward the link on your social. Just say really interesting conversation. If you ever want to know what a narcissist is, watch this, rather than sending it to people and going, I think this is your husband. Just like curious, like share it about, because this is how we educate. And I think it's such, the education for me is really, really powerful from today. So thank you for sharing your time with us. And we'll be getting all your links on, like I said, for your challenge and how to connect with you on
Yeah.
Insta and Facebook as well. That'll go on across all, guys. So keep an eye on this thread later and make sure you connect with Caroline.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Bye.